can send it out to everyone afterwards in case you guys want to review it again. This is a totally safe space. I would really love for anyone that has questions to ask questions. If you have concerns, let me know. This is a safe space where we want to make sure we're all on the same page going into the tax season. And I really want to make sure everyone has a good level of understanding. All of the ATLs and MTLs and TLs should be on this call. We also have a call tomorrow at 9 a.m. Same time, 9 to 2. Like I said a couple minutes ago, this probably isn't going to go all the way till 2, but I wanted to book that time out just in case. It's supposed to take 5 hours, but we'll probably be done with it a little bit faster. But I do ask for everybody's participation here. Share your best practices, ask the questions you don't know. This is a good, safe space where we can really make sure that we're all pushing in one direction and have a clear understanding of what we're trying to do this tax season. There's a lot of Tyler sprinkled into this spreadsheet, this PowerPoint. It was about 50 slides. I cut it down to about 25, and I put in a lot of my own slides. To give you the lens of what I'm looking at and the reality of what I see the calls versus the field. So you'll see a lot of Chesapeake District strategy here. I'm not saying that's the strategy as well for Fran's District or Virginia Beach or anyone else. So, partner with your DGM if you have questions, but this is just the way that I see the training and the way that I see our strategy, and I want to share that with everybody. I ask that you turn your camera on if you're comfortable with it, only because as we're going to have these 15 hours worth of training calls this week, it's a lot easier to communicate with you guys if I'm not talking to black screens and a brick wall. It's okay if you're on your couch. It's okay if you're in your pajamas. It doesn't matter. This is a judgment-free zone. And then lastly, just once again, make sure you clocked into the learning code, getting the learn code that you're getting paid. And then really, I just want to sum this whole little speech out with, really let's lean into better together here. Let's share best practices. If I say something that seems off, raise your hand or come off mute and say something and question it, right? If I don't know what blind spots I don't have. So if you have a best practice, or if you have something that you think that training's wrong, please speak up, and I would love to have conversation around it. This is a safe space, and I really want it to be more of a conversation than a directional me unloading a bunch of information on you. So feel free to unmute, feel free to share your thoughts, feel free to share your questions, because I'm sure if you have a question, other people do as well. So today is probably the most important skills call we're going to have all year. This is all about SOP. This is about SOP execution and how we look at it through the lens of MTL and ATL mind. Don't worry about snipping any of the screens or trying to take photos of any of it. I'm going to send this deck and the recording up to everyone as soon as we're done. So you'll have all of the resources and you'll have everything that you need. I just ask that you be present and in the moment. Really what this sums up is it's all around Block Horizons. It's all around reimagining the experience for our customers and tax pros in a digital-first world by blending technology and data with human expertise and care. We're going to go through each SOP. We're going to talk about it in detail, and we're going to show the watchouts and how you're looking at it as a leader. And we're going to break that down for you today. And if you break it down every day and you look at this every day, I promise you'll have a fantastic year. This is really where the rubber meets the road and where your level of execution ties directly to your results. So what we're going to go over today, we're going to go over the inbound call quality SOP. There's some changes there. We'll talk about it. Really, it's just a common sense SOP for me. We're not going to super deep dive on it. It's just do our people know how to answer the phone and do it the right way. We're going to do a deep dive into work in progress and how we should work that. And Teresa is going to walk us through how that looks. Gabby's going to go through schedule readiness, their schedule readiness SOP, what looking at appointment manager should really look like, and how that whole process works. And then we're going to talk about service quality and wrap it up with virtual tools. So before we get into all of that, I want to talk about what we've talked about on the last call with Radical Candor, what I've been trying to build into our whole season the whole time. It's role clarity, right? Work smart, not hard. I don't want you as the MTL to be going in and verifying every single thing, right? As the MTL, you don't want to get in the weeds, or the TL. You really want to be able to stand back and make sure that you're coaching and developing the ATLs that are on this call and doing some home planning. I have an SOP checklist, which we're about to look at, but really the big thing here is I would love for you as a leader, an MTL or an ATL, to start your day the first 30 to 60 minutes looking at your results of where you are, planning for the day, and going through that SOP checklist. If you give me that first 30 minutes, 30 to 60 minutes of your day doing that checklist, you can do whatever you want the rest of the day. You can coach your people, you can get into the offices and help your people, but as long as you start with that checklist, you'll be in a really good spot. So I'm going to share really quick. And I'll send this out right after the call, but can you guys see the daily cadence checklist here? Anybody see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. So this is something we used last year. We tailored it a little bit this year, but this is really what I would like for you to start your day with. And this isn't a micromanagement thing. You don't have to send me anything for it. And I know, to be clear, that there's some training out there about like this daily training checklist that you check off, and then we're supposed to recap together at a later point and all that. I can't speak for the other districts, but for my district, I'm not going to be micromanaging that. I'm not going to be making sure that you send in a checklist every day. That's just not my management style. I want you to do this yourself, and I ask that you do this because it'll drive your results. I'm not asking you to send me a checklist. I'm not asking you to send me verification of this. This is just how I want you to start your day and part of your daily planning. So I want you to start each morning making sure that your communication boards are set up. And this is more for the ATLs, the communication board piece, not so much for the MTLs. So making sure that you print your reports and have your board set up in your office, using names and making it your own on the communication board, making sure you know where you are to client growth. And we'll go through some of these reports later on so you can see where to see these. Making sure you know what you need to do today in order to drive clients and fill the funnel, and then what's on tap for the next few days and how you're planning to fill the funnel. So ATL will really drive that, or if you're a TL, making sure that communication board is up and that we're using it. Schedule readiness, reviewing yesterday's appointment manager, reviewing today, contacting the next 2 days, making sure that you're in a good place from schedule readiness. And we're going to break each of these down in a moment, but I'm just going over high level, right? Looking at service quality, making sure you look at all the surveys from yesterday, responding to them all, making sure you're reviewing and coaching with your team, and then work in progress, which we'll go through that process. And then making sure you look at virtual tools and inbound calling. So really just looking at your results, knowing where you are, making sure you're planned for the day and planned for the next day, and that you're starting your day with that planning and not shooting from the hip. And if you do that every day and you spend 30 to 60 minutes starting your day that way, I think it'll really set you up in a way where you'll be set up for success. And I sent this out this morning, but I'll send it out with the recap email too, so you have it. It's a great tool you can use to walk your ATLs through what they need to do each day and to help us all stay focused. Any thoughts or comments on that before we do a deep dive on everything? Or does that make sense?
It makes sense, but I would recommend doing this if you have access to the data from home before you step into the office. Because once you're in the office with the tax pros, they're going to be pulling on you. They need this, they need that. So then this kind of gets lost. I start this at 7:30 in the morning when I'm get all my people out of the house, and I have the house to myself for 20 minutes. So I start here before I get to the office. So when I'm in the office, I'm ready to jump in feet first. I actually send the communication board to a tax pro, whichever tax pro is in the office first. So they can start the communication board. I know the numbers, but then they're excited about the numbers because they're forced to look at the numbers.
Absolutely love it. Yep, great call out.
Yeah,
I recommend it for all the
also last year.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I turned all of the MTLs and TLs in Chesapeake on for work from anywhere. So you're already able to access work from home. If you can't, please partner with me and Dawn, and we'll help that get turned on for you. And if you're in another district, I highly recommend you do that as well, because it lets you know what's going on, right? If you're going down to the tax pro level on virtual, which is a hot topic right now, right? And you know where your people are in performance, then you can come in and know exactly who you have to coach, who you have to work with, and where those data-driven smart results, instead of shooting from the hip and trying to figure it out while you're in the office. So great share. Any other thoughts on the daily home-based planning stuff before we move on? All right, cool. Bear with me as we jump in and out of this PowerPoint as we go through stuff, because I want to make sure we cover everything. Oh, hold on. Okay, so the hub. When you guys see the data hub, so first off, do all the MTLs have access to the data hub at this point or no? Does anybody not have access to the data hub?
No.
No? Okay. So for those of you, we're going to share and go through some of the data hub stuff, because this is the main reporting that you guys are going to see. And this is really where you're going to drive your results from all of your, I'm just going to start using this screen. That way we're not jumping back and forth here. So bear with me for a second. So the data hub is, for those of you that don't know, where all of the results are stored and where all the reporting is for you. And to simplify it in one word, if I could define the hub, it's complicated, right? It's like 30 different reports. There's a million different things everywhere. And if you don't know where to look for the things you're looking for, it can be kind of confusing. So I wanted to take a moment before we go through this and just show you where to find the information that's important on the hub and break it down to the tax pro level off in each office, so you can actually see where your people are and how to coach them. So let's break it down for a moment. So on the hub, and like I said, I'm recording this and your MTLs should be comfortable with it. I'm also comfortable with it if you need any help, but I just want to make sure you know where to find all the data and info. So on the right hand of the screen here, where it says return service quality virtual attach rate small biz, that's the scorecard I'm using this year. It's the same scorecard I used last year for tax pros. This is really, if you hit all of these things, you're going to make the year, and that's really all I'm focused on. I want you to be focused on the same things. I'm going to show you exactly how to find all of these things down to the tax pro level, and then you should be comfortable on where to find that information. So let's start with returns, right? It's the #1 focus. If you don't drive enough returns, none of the rest matters. So as far as returns, when you go into the hub, and let me show you how to get into the hub again in case you haven't been there before. So when you go to DNA and log in, on the left-hand side, you will see Data Science and Analytics Hub. When you click on that, it opens up this page. And there's a bunch of reports here. A lot of them don't apply to you. A lot of them are for hiring. A lot of them you can just get kind of confusing. So when you're looking here, the first thing that you want to look at is returns. And funny enough, the best place to find that is the labor report. So there's a report called labor right here. And it not to be confused with the labor summary report, but the actual labor report. And if you click on that report, you'll see a lot of information. So let me make sure, can you guys see the labor report on my screen? I want to make sure before I break it down.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of tabs up here that you can look at. What I recommend is where it says the date range. The way I'm going to be tracking it and sending it to you guys is month by month, right? So right now we're in November. And so where it says custom date range, you can click here, and what I click is in the range. So if you click on the custom date range, click in the range, you can pick any date. So let's do the 1st to the 30th of this month. So we're looking at all of November for return growth. Whenever you click and you can click more information in here, you can click a district, a market. It'll go down to the office level when you're in a district automatically. So once you put in the date range, there's a little blue refresh button over here on the right, and you hit that button. It'll refresh that data for whatever date range you pick. So this is showing the whole region. The whole region was up 10.4% to guidance and returns, which is great. But you'll see this little caret, and it may show a district, it may show the region. It just depends on how you're classed. But that little caret drills down to the next level. So Gonzales Mid-Atlantic, that's the whole region. These are all districts. I'm going to go to the Chesapeake district just because it's easy, right? So what you can see here is we did 68 returns, which beat guidance by 15.3%. But what you can do is the MTL and the ATL is there's 3 little dots, a little ellipsis next to our district there. So you can click the little dots next to Chesapeake, and then you can see office detail. And what this will do is it'll drill down and show you your office returns to goal. And you can do it during any time frame. During the tax season, the default view will be tax season. So when you come into this report, you can see your office. So like Steve is office 32039. You can see it would show by the tax season that he's up 162.9%, and where he is for revenue and everything else. And that's great, and you definitely want to know where you are. But in my mind, we really want to coach down to the tax pro level. So we're going to drill down again. So you're at the office, you hit the little 3 ellipses, and you say labor summary by tax pro. So now in Steve's office, we see each tax pro for the time frame that we selected, how many returns they've done, and their total productivity. So you can see who is really getting results for you here. So you see Letitia here has twice as many returns in this office as everyone else. So if you're trying to drive virtual, if you're trying to drive results, if you're trying to push here, it makes more sense to focus on Letitia, Gabby, and Marianne than the rest of the office to get results quickly. So easy way to get all the way to the tax pro level for any time frame and see how they're doing with the returns, how many returns they're writing, that kind of information. Is this helpful? Was going through that helpful to show you how your people are performing for returns?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, let's look at service quality. So there's 2 places you can find service quality. One of them is on the OpEx dashboard, which has a ton of information on here. So if you scroll almost all the way to the bottom on the left here, it says operational excellence. You'll be able to see a lot of information here, and it's the same filters where you can pick any time frame. So you can see service quality, you can see work in progress, and you can see virtual by Tax Pro on this OpEx page. So first, let's just look at service quality. And then we go to, so this is current year. I think actually, yeah, current year. And then we can break it down just like we just did all the way to the Tax Pro and see how their performance is. And you have to read one of them, each of them, to see what it is. So like that one says office detail. Okay, so this one, the farthest it goes is office detail. Oh, we clicked, it went into schedule readiness. Sorry, 1 second. So we're in service quality. So you have to go down where it says service quality. I accidentally clicked on the one that says scheduling. So service quality office detail. And then it'll show each office, the number of surveys, the likelihood to return, all of that. And then you can also go down to tax pro detail, service quality tax pro detail. And you can see exactly how many surveys each person has for that time frame, what their percentage to return is. And you can see all the data and where everyone is. And you can pick up here at the top, you can pick, is the range, and pick any time date that you want to see for where your people are. And for the Chesapeake team, I'm going to send out probably Monday, Wednesday, Friday during tax season, like a ranking like we did last year, where it has all the tax pros and where this data is, so you won't have to look it up. But I just want to make sure you know how in case you have any questions. The other place that we can find service quality is Medallia. And if you don't have this on your phone, I heavily recommend that you get it on your phone. It's a free app. You just log in and you can see where everyone's surveys are. But if not, and to do that, you just go to DNA on your phone, click Client Experience Survey, and you can make it a shortcut, or you download the Medallia app. If you want to do it on DNA, you open up the main page on the left where it says Client Experience Survey. You click that. And this DNA only updates once a day. This dashboard updates every single day, real time. So you can see what your intent to return is here. It should automatically show the district, which is what everybody bonuses off of. And then if you hit the responses tab on the top, you can see each survey, their intent to return, and what the answer is.
So Tyler, for
Yep.
MTLs, if you want to see, if you go back to the, if you want to see all your offices, you go where it says HBR management here for Tyler. It's going to be, it's going to show you where you want to go to user roles and pick upper level, and that will show you the entire district. For us, it shows just your main office.
Yep. And to put it out there, now off every metric, all the MTLs and TLs and ATLs bonus off the district level. So it's all a teamwork. If you're just tracking where you are, because 90% is where you make max goal for customer surveys, you could be at 100% CES and be feeling great, but if the district is at 40%, you still need to drive more returns to max your bonus. So definitely worth looking at. All right, let's look at virtual. So virtual is also an OpEx, operational excellence. And it's just the same thing we looked at with everything else. You scroll down to where it says virtual. You pick whatever time frame you want to look at on the top. And I'm sure I'll be sending this report out often to you guys in Chesapeake because I want you to know where your people are with virtual because it's such an opportunity. Cut off my camera really quick so it loads a little faster. 1 second. Of course, now it's not loading, but it shows by office, and then you hit the ellipsis and drill down to Tax Pro, and it shows by Tax Pro what their virtual percentage is, just like everything else. But you'd find that in that operational excellence virtual tab. And if you guys need any help with this later on, let me know. And I'm totally fine with doing a one-on-one with you and breaking it down as well. Attach rate. So I know the company doesn't talk about attach rate a lot. What I will say is for the Chesapeake team, the only reason we hit our profit goals last year was because we increased attach rate. It's one, other than labor, it's the biggest thing you can do to drive profit, which is our #1 focus. So I really want to continue to focus on it. I really would like for you to continue to focus on it. It's what drives your results. So the attach rate is under the revenue tab. So when you click revenue, it'll load faster if I cut off my camera sometimes. 1 second. I'm sharing too much. We're going to go back into it really quick. Bear with me.
And Tyler,
Yeah.
you were talking about attach rate, and I remember last year one of Gabby's folks, I think it was Terry White, had put out a really good, just some tips and tricks. I don't want to say tricks, but some tips that helps the client to see the value of these services and ways to make it affordable, which support our overall mission. So yeah. I think Gabby and her crew really embraced that last year.
Yeah, they did, and they drove a ton of profit from it. I don't know if we can find that sheet, but if we can, I'll send it out to everybody. Could we see if Terry still has that, or if any of our MTLs still have that?
I'm sure it's in my group files. I'll find it for you.
That'd be awesome. I'll send it to everyone with all the information. So when you go to revenue and you scroll to the bottom here, there's a couple different things. Like I said, there's a million reports, but this one that says product revenue, that's the actual attachment, the attachments that you're selling that drive your bottom line. So you click on product revenue. I'll let it load here. And I know I'm throwing a lot at you, especially if you're in a new ATL. You'll be able to have time to play in here, and your leaders will help you. And if you're an MTL and you need help with this stuff, I mean, the door's open. It's really all about Bear Together. And if you need any help, I'm here for you. Just let me know. So you can see all the attach rates versus last year, current year, wherever. This is the region level. It drills down just like all the other ones, all the way down to Tax Pro, right? So, and that's really where we want to live, is that Tax Pro level, to see who's helping, who's hurting, especially if they're writing a lot of returns. But what I like to do is scroll all the way over to the right and you can see total attach rate this year and total attach rate last year. And this last column, total attach rate growth. So if you see the region is up 12.3 in attach rate for all of fiscal year so far. And then you can see by district, for example, Chesapeake, we're up 6.5 in attach rate, whereas the region is up 12.3 in attach rate. So what that means to me is that we're going to drag in overall revenue unless we can double where our attach rate is now and get where they are for the fiscal year. Something to think about. But drill down to the Tax Pro level here, play around and see where your people are for your districts. Really, the big thing is how do we coach and motivate and lead the people that are not driving attach rate or virtual or whatever element you're looking at. And it all starts with looking at the data here and seeing who is and isn't performing, and then taking that data and then doing coaching and coaching around that stuff. Small business is also in revenue. So I'm just going to go back a page. You go to revenue, scroll all the way down where it says company small business revenue. And this report, of course, also goes all the way down to the Tax Pro level.
Tyler, excuse me, could you explain attach rate? I don't know what that is.
Sure. So it's when we sell peace of mind, the small business attachments, everything that the Tax Pro can sell that's optional. And all of those things are extra revenue for the company. So let's talk about peace of mind, for example, right? Means if we do something wrong on the return, then it's completely taken care of. We cover it. The customer doesn't get that 100% of the time. So we want to motivate and coach the tax pros to sell that add-on item. We get extra revenue for it. It makes a better customer experience and it drives more profit. The difference of if I was looking last year, the difference of my district selling just 1% more in peace of mind was equal to like over $100,000. So there's a huge difference you can make by adding those attachments. Does that make sense? Any questions about it? Is that good?
Tyler?
Yeah.
I just had a thought when you were talking about peace of mind. With working off season, I've seen a lot of tax notices. Can we kind of put a plug in for peace of mind that, you know, the IRS is sending out a lot of tax notices and that can protect you a little bit by having peace of mind? Could we use that as a plug?
Oh yeah, when we do our Tax Pro Work Center piece, I'm going to tie in products to that as well. So more to come there, but at least for the Chesapeake team, it's going to be a big piece of it.
And that's one of the recommendations for having tax pros work off season, is that a lot of them don't notice the letter situation. But if they've worked one preseason, they understand the value of peace of mind. Because even our own clients, if they come in with a letter, we're supposed to charge them $99 to even read that letter if they don't have peace of mind.
Exactly. Yeah, and if you look too, and I know this is kind of off topic for those MTLs that have been around a while, there's actually a report the DGM can pull to see how much of the TNS TRS that is actually being charged for. And we give last year, not this year, but last year, Chesapeake gave like 99% of them away. So it's like, why are we selling peace of mind if we're doing it for free anyways? And you can dig in there for profit as well. And now our profit's up in a huge way this year because we actually charged for it, but it's a company-wide issue, I see. So something to think about.
I've put that peace of mind tax identity shield value prop statement in the chat.
Love it. You rock. Thank you, Gabby. So when you're looking at the company, so we went to revenue and hit small business revenue on the bottom. You'll be able to see for any time frame that you pick how many clients you helped versus past year in that time frame. And then on the top left, you'll be able to see to guidance. So right now, the region is up 3.5% to where they're supposed to be with it. But with it being the company's #1 initiative, and you can drill this down all the way to Tax Pro and see how your tax pros are growing. So if one of your top tax pros that writes 500 returns per season is dropping heavily in small business, is somewhere you can really push. So, but you can break this down all the way to tax per level, and that's small business. So I know we just went through a lot, but I wanted to just show you where to get all the data. Now we're going to look at really the what behind it, the how to drive results, how to motivate your people, what we're really looking at the MTLTL level. But I wanted to just start with, hey, here's where all that information is. Like I said, for Chesapeake, don't be overwhelmed. I'm going to send out scorecards with this data. You probably won't have to pull it unless you want to, but that's where everything is. Any questions about anything we just went over, or anything I can clarify before we go on? I know I just went over a lot of information. All right, cool. So let's talk about inbound call quality. For me, I think this is more of a staffing play, and we'll talk about it in a minute, but I want to break down, there's some changes this year, and they're looking at very specific things. So for those of you that don't know, the calls are now recorded. Every call is recorded, just like a quality assurance thing, just like many call centers do, and most companies do at this point. And the company records and picks up automatically on things that people say, and ranks that as SOP. For me, you won't see me really spending a ton of time on this one, because here's my big picture, right, before we drill in here. Last year, does anybody want to guess what percentage of phone calls we didn't answer during peak tax season? No wrong answer. What percentage of calls just went completely unanswered during peak?
More than
50%.
50%.
What was the guess?
More than
50%,
70%.
It's 35%.
Oh.
Because you have to think, I know all of the MTLs in Chesapeake are in a heavy office, which have a much higher percentage, right, of missed calls. But we also have smaller offices which are able to answer a lot of calls, right? But you guys get the point. There are a lot of phone calls that just aren't answered. And those calls during that time is to make appointments. Okay, so out of the 35% of calls that we just didn't answer because we didn't have the manpower, what percentage of those calls didn't even get it rolled over to our call center because they were overbooked? You guys want to guess?
Half of that.
50%.
Exactly, 50% of them. So translation, about 15 to 20% of our customers that called during our busiest time never got answered, which is crazy to me, right? So my thing is here, the company is saying, look, this is how we're tracking call quality. We want to make sure we have good calls. We want to make sure blah, blah, blah. My ask for you is make sure you have somebody to answer the phone. We can, so to be super clear, we are allowed to hire CSPs all year. I want you to focus on having CSP staffing open to close all day, every day. I would think, and I broke this down a couple times in the past. Think of how much we pay a CSP. We can, if we schedule 3 CSPs all day and just make 1 or 2 appointments, it pays for all that labor. I would really rather you focus on having enough people to answer the phone calls to drive additional returns and make appointments. Overschedule CSPs, overhire CSPs, hire all years for CSPs. We know it's the #1 position we lose. When I walk into an office and I ask tax pros what the problem is, I hear a lot, oh, we don't have enough CSPs, or oh, we have a CSP that can open and close and we don't have enough coverage. It just blows my mind. It's like, look, a whole shift of a CSP, if you get 1 return, it pays for them. So let's get the people in the offices to answer phones so that you're not letting those returns walk away. That's my big focus of inbound call quality. And the thing that we layer in there this year, in my opinion, is that you get virtual. Because the CSP, virtual should really be a CSP play. They should be calling those customers 3 days ahead of time to confirm appointments. And when they do, ask them to upload a MyBlock, their W-2 to their MyBlock, or upload their license to MyBlock. And then that way, you don't have, the tax pro doesn't have to worry about the virtual piece, and they can worry about executing.
Tyler,
Yep.
with the added duty of scanning all the documents in that we're requesting the CSPs to do, we need a CSP there all the time, in addition to answering phones.
Exactly. I'm okay if you have 2 of them, because what the data says is that it'll pay for itself. What the data says is that you're going to have a lot of your customers walk out frustrated because they're waiting too long. You're going to have people that call and never get an answer and then go across the street and do taxes with somebody else. So I'd just rather pay an extra CSP and partner with your MTL, partner with me if you have questions around it, or your DGM if you're a different district. But I would really recommend way over scheduling CSPs so that way you can get more returns. So now let's break it down what the metric is looking at. They're looking at that there's a first impression, and I'm going to break this down more in a minute, but what they're looking for in the call quality and the recordings is that we give a good first impression, that we identify what the client needs, we give a personalized solution, we secure the appointment, we offer virtual, and overall what the net sentiment is, which means were they happy overall. What the reporting looks like, there's a phone SOP and virtual offering metrics. You can listen to recordings from your team, or I could listen to them as well. It's going to be built into the dashboard within the hub. Looker is the same thing as the hub. And the spirit of the reporting is to provide us visibility on phone SOP and adherence. Really, the main thing is if you have someone who's not helping customers in a friendly, happy way, they'll flag and we can do coaching around it. I'm not going to super micromanage this one. My big thought here is really focus on your staffing, and that's where we can win. I will tell you from listening to some of these Nextida calls, there were some definite opportunities last season. I'll throw out another wild, crazy question guess for you guys out there. What percentage of calls do you think talked about virtual for all of tax season last year for the company? Any guesses?
I'm going to say less than 1%.
Yeah.
So it was 6%.
Oh,
Now here's the follow-up question. Do you know where the company landed with virtual percentage for the year?
12%.
15%.
6%.
Not at goal.
It was the same exact percentage of people talking about it on the phone. 6%. Something to think about. So this is how they're going to break it all down. Like I said, I don't want this to be an eyesore site. I don't want this to be like, oh my God, let's micromanage exactly how we answer the phone and drive all of this. Think big here. Give yourself enough staff to be able to answer the phone and have an actual conversation where we can help them. So what they're looking for is that we're saying H&R Block and the customer's name, that we're saying, how can I help you, or something like that. That we mention taxes, a W-2, something about their taxes overall, that they offer any type of appointment, and that they offer virtual, and then overall, was it a positive call or a negative call? What I would say is you don't have to print this out. You don't have to coach this. This is kind of some common sense stuff. Just make sure that we're actually answering the phone and trying to make appointments or trying to get virtual. That's how I would simplify it. I don't want you to overwhelm your CSPs with this. We just want to make sure that they are answering the phone and are trying to drive a positive customer experience. So what should it look like for an ATL coaching around inbound phone quality? When we think of answering the phones, what are the ATLs in the office looking for? And MTLs can answer or ATLs can answer, it doesn't matter. What do you guys think?
I would say making sure that we're hearing the elements of the metrics, but also if we were the receiving end of it, what would be our overall impression? Do we feel like that's a warm, inviting place to go to? They're going to help me, or is this something else that I've got to check off my to-do list?
Yep. All right, I'll throw another percentage out there for you. What percentage of our appointments are made over the phone? Anybody remember from last year?
I want to say about 80%.
Very close. Yep, 85%. So if 85% of your appointments are made over the phone and you have a CSP who doesn't know how to land an appointment over the phone, you're going to really hurt yourself this year. So as an ATL or a TL, being in that office and watching those phone calls and watching how effective that person is at making an appointment from a phone call and watching how they can really kind of sell that appointment and book an appointment, that's what it's all about, right? It's that coaching, that over the shoulder coaching, that watching and making sure that they're comfortable and doing role plays with them and talking them through what it looks like to make an appointment. That's what's going to help you win with the phone readiness SOP. Any other thoughts on what it looks like for an ATL around phone readiness?
I would broaden the scope that it's not just with the CSPs, but anybody who is answering the phones should also know this information.
Completely agree.
So just making sure that you're hearing what people are saying, making sure that the client is being taken care of. And in those moments where you hear someone miss an element or aren't projecting the happy place that we are, we're focused on customer service, you want to let them finish that particular phone call, but correct it immediately. So step in right after that call and say, hey, I know you missed this element or that element, or you weren't happy and bubbly. So smile before you even pick up the phone, so it comes through in your voice.
Yep.
Absolutely, Gabby. I've always said they can hear your smile. And that's a great start to any call, because it shows you care.
I completely agree. And if you walk away without addressing it, it's giving permission for sure. All right, so now let's flip it a little bit. What's it look like for an MTL? What does managing the inbound phone quality SOP look like for an MTL? Sorry, let me rephrase that. How should it look?
Well, I think you've already addressed it. We need to, if we hear it, good or bad, we need to address it right at that particular point.
And also reviewing. I mean, we don't have to micromanage the phones, but if we have the access to the calls in the hub, that's one more thing we should be listening to on a regular basis. So even if it's missed while you're not in the office, you can address it the next time you're visiting that office.
Love it. Yeah. So this is, and I have this question for each SOP, because this is where we want to make the culture shift, at least in Chesapeake, right? You've got those extra ATLs. You're going to be able to visit the offices. Think of the SOP planning you're doing each morning, right? You're going to go in and you'll have a dashboard where it shows you who's bad at phone calls or about phone calling by the Tax Pro. You'll be able to say, okay, let's work smart, not hard. Instead of just walking into every office, you can do a planned visit around your offices that suck at SOP phone quality. Walk in when you know that Tax Pro was working, observe their phone conversation, or maybe call them and have a call with that person, and then walk in and coach that person. Or look at coaching the coach, right? Maybe you pull ATL in and do some coaching with them. I want you to really think in the leader mindset. How do you got to pull the data, figure out where the main issue is, and then address it and make sure that the person who owns it, who's that ATL, understands how it works and how we can coach around it. Does that make sense? Any final thoughts around what it should look like for an MTL? Any questions or anything I missed, or any ideas around how it should look for an MTL? All right, so now just a couple of basic questions for everybody. Don't know what is there. Knowing how important inbound call quality is to the success of your office, how do you plan to cultivate quality calls in TS22? No wrong answer. What do you guys think?
Just making sure everyone knows the expectation and following up with the coaching. So if everybody knows what we're expected to do, and if you correct the problems as soon as they happen, or praise the good behavior as soon as you see it happen, it'll fix itself, basically.
Yep, exactly. And then if anybody wants to share, what's your commitment to make sure every client's offered a virtual option?
Again, I think that goes with the planning. Make sure that we're looking and seeing who isn't offering, and make sure that we address it, of course, first of all, in our daily face-to-faces and in any of our coaching sessions. And don't let it get to be a problem too hard to overcome.
Exactly.
Because it's going to be so difficult to hit the goal if we don't ask. And that's what I wanted to drive home from every tax pro, everybody who works in the office and whatever the role is, that we have to be versed in it. We have to know what it's like from the customer side and help them to see the benefits of it, or we'll miss the boat.
Exactly. 40%, right? The company, we just said the company landed at like 7%. So more than quadruple what we did last year as in virtual is a big jump. So we really need to make sure everyone's comfortable with it, knows how to do virtual. And we'll talk about strategy in a minute with it, just make sure we're on the same page.
Tyler,
Yeah.
could we, like, at each tax pro's desk on the customer side, put some kind of a note or flyer saying, are you virtually connected, or something like that? You know, something that the customer sees, that they will ask us, what are you talking about? What is this?
I think you're ahead of what the company's already doing. I think the company's making something for that. If we don't see that by January, then let's definitely put something there, but I'm pretty sure they're building something right now for it.
Okay.
And I would say look at, well, like I said, we're kind of getting ahead of it because we're going to talk about it, but really let's just not make it an option, right? It's, if you want to do your taxes with us, your first step is to upload a W-2 to your MyBlock. That's how it works. You know what I mean? Don't take away the option of how it's done. And if they don't have a cell phone or whatever, that's fine. We're not turning people away. But if you have a cell phone, that's how we start the process. So work in progress. So what does it look like for an ATL? What should an ATL be doing daily around work in progress?
Come on, team. I know they're prior ATLs. Share, what did you do last year?
Every morning you come in and you check the report and you check to see if there are notes in the notes section, and you check to see if there's a follow-up date. And if there isn't, you give it back to the tax pro and say, fix it. And tell them why we need notes, because I'm stupid. I don't know what you're talking about with the return and what you need, is usually my response.
Yep,
and that would be the same problem with the new CSPs. If they don't know taxes, they don't know what you're talking about. And when they go to call the client to say, hey, we need a 1099, but what's a 1099? So they got to be knowledgeable at least about what they're asking the client for. Yep. And there needs to be a follow-up date so that it gets done and not transferred over to Woodford for the summer.
I like that. Exactly.
I'm right there with you. When I took over Roanoke Rapids, I had to get them to write detailed notes. So that way the person coming after them, if they were trying to call the whip, that they knew exactly what was going on with it. And just needing a signature, okay, just need one signature, or they need on all because it was printed out and now they're going to mail it. What's going on with it? Or tax pro needs more time. More time for what? They needed more detailed notes. So some of them, I think I got it through their heads that they needed more notes, but I'm working on it. We're getting there.
Yep, it's that constant coaching. Anything else? Any ATLs look at with?
I love what Maria says. Maria, tell her what you say to your tax pros about the whip.
Okay, I lost my.
Whose responsibility is it? What do you treat them as? They're the bill collectors?
Oh yeah, I tell them that if you don't have good notes, you get to be the bill collector. It's all on you then, and I'll sit there and watch you make the call, because that they're in that drawer because you didn't do everything you needed to do.
Exactly, love it. Any other thoughts around what an ATL should be doing for WorkCenter?
Need to check on the follow-up dates and be sure things are being followed up on.
Oh yeah. Yep. Exactly. And I think what I'm picking up here, right, is a lot of coaching, right? It's telling that tax pro what the problem is, because if we don't coach, if we don't fix the root cause issue and mentor that tax pro around follow-up dates, around notes, around calling the customer, then what happens is you end up chasing it all year, right? So it's better to just address the issue with the tax pro, take care of the issue, and then move along for sure. All right, so what should it look like for an MTL this year?
I would
So
say
we
that,
should-
go ahead, Gabby.
So we should be following up, reviewing the WIP, making sure that, their notes are there. But we're not supposed to be in the weeds following up with each tax pro and everything. We're supposed to be expecting our ATLs to do that. And then we're supposed to be inspecting what we expect our ATLs to do.
Yep.
And I would say if we need to have, like little coaching sessions, so maybe you don't know how to approach, a particular situation, definitely have those conversations with the ATL, just giving them that guidance on what they need to be doing.
And then if an ATL needs help with a particular tax pro, step in with that tax pro. So be
Absolutely.
that final force that if we need to say, hey, this needs to be done, it hasn't been done, you've been coached a couple times by the ATL, now it's my turn to talk to you.
Absolutely.
Exactly. And you
And
can look
also,
Go ahead. Did you have something, Teresa?
I was going to say, I look at it also as an opportunity for us to look and see if there's any trends or any educational gaps. I know over the years, I've partnered with many different people to try to figure out how do you resolve some, and be able to, if you see something that's still dragging on in your WIP, there's a bigger issue to it. It's not always a lack of follow-up. It's something I'm missing. Oh, I didn't know I could help the client go to VAC and set up their account so they can pull to get that missing document. There's things out there that's questions behind the questions, and that's where I think that we add value too, is to help troubleshoot and look at overall trends to see if is it educational gap, is it a lack of knowledge, or is it a lack of effort? How can we help us to all hit that main goal?
Exactly. And with that whole trend of working smart, not hard, right? It's that starting in the morning, looking at all three of your offices for however many you have, seeing where your main issues are, and then going addressing the behaviors where they are, and making sure your ATL understands the process and is working it. The more you can get your ATL to be like an MTL, and the more you can be like a DM, the better we're all going to be off for sure.
Also, with working smart, not hard, is to remind the tax pros that there are ways of not having WIPs. And when the ATL is touching the desk, or they hear, oh, I don't have this form or that form, that can be acquired right there at the tax pro desk by a simple phone call or something, is to, when you touch the desk, say, oh, remember, you can get that by going to this site. And I had the sheets right at the tax pro's desk to tell them where to get that information.
Yeah, I love it. Absolutely love it. So something I wanted to show you as far as the coaching and the reporting too, a report I use that I think is great is if you go into OpEx, just like everything else, and you go down to work in progress. Make this big so everyone can see it. You can actually see conversion by tax pro. So here's the conversion for the far right is 95%. You can pick any time range and then drill down to the tax pro, the office, wherever, and you can see what their actual conversion percentage is. So if you have a custom, if you're keep in mind at 103% of our return growth means you max bonus and we had a great year. So if you have this district, for example, that's only at 94%, conversion, whereas the region's at 95%. I mean, that's a ton of money. So you can drill down to the tax pros, see who's not converting customers with WIP and who your main problems are. You can look at last year's numbers for all your tax pros in here and see who's not converting and get ahead of it. And it'll just help you focus on the right people in the right places for sure. So with that, I am going to hand it over to Teresa, who's going to go through the checklist for WIP and talk a little bit about WIP and her process. And if you could just kind of walk us through that, Teresa, that'd be awesome.
Sure. I'm flipping my screen over to my remote desk. So 1 second here. If someone can tell me if they can see it keeps logging me out. So anybody who's done the work from home, you know, if you're out of it too long, it will take you out.
Not a problem. We don't see your screen yet.
How about now?
Nope.
Okay, 1 second here. A couple of things that we've already touched on while I'm flipping this screen is about looking at the reports, knowing where you were yesterday, where you're going today, and to chart that process of are you making movement or not. So that's one of the key things on there, because the analogy that was used in the past.
Your screen's loading now.
Yeah, it keeps throwing me out of the remote desk. Could someone else log in who may be in the office or something and pull up the work center for Victory, and I could walk us through it? Did I lose everybody? Am I still frozen?
I hear you. I see your desk now.
Okay. So you see my desktop now?
Yep, I can see you. You're good.
Okay. Let me see if I can get back into.
And while you pull that up,
Because
everybody, last year we pulled the guy who helped create and build WorkCenter into a call to walk us through how to work through WorkCenter correctly as a daily process or whenever you want to work WIP. And I just put it in the chat there. So it's a great process you can go over with your ATLs and go over as an MTL that'll walk you through how to actually work WIP productively and see. And it's the process that Teresa's going to share if this opens up for her.
And one of the key things is to have the right mindset. And everybody was talking about it a few minutes ago. Joy put an awesome concept out there about having the mindset that you touch it once, you get through paid that very first session, no matter which way you do it with the client. Because during that session we had with Michael Ball, he used an analogy is that, let's say you were taking your car into a service and you dropped it off because they said you can drop it off, we'll update you. And you had to call them back a few hours later and ask for an update. And they said, oh, let me check. And then they didn't get back to you. And then it's a couple of days later and you still haven't heard anything. And then they're like, oh, it's because you forgot to drop off the keys. Well, why couldn't you tell me it a couple of days ago? And you can see the analogy could build just into the same thing that we're doing also, is how well are we keeping the client informed of what is it going to do to be able to finish the service for them? And that's kind of the nuts and bolts of what we do with the WIP. And I'm pretty passionate about WIP. Everybody that's worked on the team with me before is that just drives me crazy that when WIP sits and we don't have any updates on it, because it should be a daily process for a tax pro when they come in on their shift, is not only do they clock in, they check their emails, but they should be immediately going to their home screen, which you guys can see it keeps just wanting me, throwing me out of the desktop, but hopefully this is the last third time is charm. But when we get to the new desktop, go ahead, Tyler.
Teresa, try going through WIP through DNA. You might not be able to see everything, but you can give them an overview.
Good idea.
I'm going to try this one last one because a few minutes ago it worked, but then if not, Gabby, I'll flip. But go ahead, Tyler.
While you're doing that, I've got a question. I know probably most of Chesapeake knows this one, but does anybody know the number one? So actually, I'll break it down a little bit more. Do you guys know what percentage of our customers come back that are new each year? What percentage of our customer returns to us? Yep, Leslie hit it right on in the chat, 50%. That means half of our customers each year just don't come back. When I heard that during my training, that's what I built my whole strategy around, was like, holy crap, we make half of our customers so mad they won't come back and shop with us. I don't think I've ever heard of another business that stays successful doing that. So I put my big focus on customer service and getting that customer back. And I think that's the biggest thing we can do. And that's why I'm going to close on customer service, because it's such an important topic to me. But that being said, half of our customers don't come back. Do you know the number one reason they don't come back? Any guesses?
Lack of follow-up.
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 Bingo. And the first time I ask everyone that question, is the number one answer I get is price, value, that kind of thing. It's the price them leaving is only about 15 to 20% of the 15 to 20% of people don't come back because of price. The big majority of reason is that we don't ever follow up. I read every single survey that came through our region last year and put them in different categories and broke it down. And by far, it was no follow-up. Never got a call from the tax pro. Didn't hear back after I submitted documents. They never told me I needed to upload stuff and never called me back. It's just that lack of follow-up that constantly gets us. So that's why, to me, the number one focus is customer service, because if you treat your customers right, they'll come back instead of doing their taxes in the parking lot. And not only that, but the number one part of that is doing WIP correctly, because it means that we'll actually contact our people back. So I'll get off my soapbox now, but it's my number one focus, and this is a huge piece of it. And Teresa's going to break it down a little bit for us more.
Well, I appreciate that segue when I had the technical difficulties. The first thing is to go and check the unread messages first. You can see how the work center is a little bit different this year. The snapshot, we can grab this really quickly. The unread messages are going to be the key, because those is just what we were talking about. Those are the people who have already contacted us, had a need for us, and if we disappoint them at the get-go, then we're losing speed very quickly. And so you would just go over to your messages tab and then scroll down to see where if you had any messages. You see we're pretty up to date right now, so I won't show any here. But when we go back to the snapshot, the second thing after you resolve the messages for the day, and that could be as simple as just reassigning it to someone who's here, because that's the key thing. If Jane Doe hasn't been there for a couple of shifts and she's not going to be back, reassign it to someone who has time to at least call the client and say, I know we owe you a call. How can we help you? The next one is looking actually in the WIP. So if I go actually out there, you'll see really quick snapshot. I have 8 returns. There's nothing left for me to do review on. And I do have some past due dates. So that tells me I have some action. This be it the ATL looking at this, the CSP can look at this, the tax pro can look at this also. They're going to look at it on their home screen to see a quicker version on it for the tax pro though. So the little change up from last year, so the handout that Tyler posted out there, I will update it as soon as I know that Work Center is a little bit more stable. They're still adding some enhancements, but I'll be able to go over and do the same sortation we did in the past. Is I can look at past due. I can look over by the tax pro actions requested. And this means that I have sent out to, or the leader has sent out to the tax pro, follow up and was specific on what do you need to do and when do you need to do it by. That's the level of information we want to put in those tax pro actions. If you go into anyone, like if I scroll down to this pending payment, and why am I going to pending payment? That's the quickest way to get the revenue. So I'm going to make sure I at least address those in the e-file immediately. So if I'm looking at this one, move Tyler. And I go into the details of it, I can see some more information. Once I have reviewed, I'm going to mark as reviewed, but I did find a glitch with the system. If you want the tax pro to have the action first, you want to go ahead and do the tax pro action. You'll click up here. It will pop up a menu where you can scroll down and add the note in there, what you want the tax pro to do. You can see I have some notes in there for her, what she needs to do. I can choose the action, But don't just stop here with just one of these subheaders. Be specific with them, especially what you want to do. More information, they know what to execute, they know what the expectation is, and then also know if they met that goal. And then you can also look is when is the next action? This one is a callback. This person here, we're just waiting on her to pay. So that person should have a next appointment already. We shouldn't be just waiting around, oh, they'll get back to us somewhere before the end of the month. Somewhere before the end of the month tends not to always happen. Does everybody have that same experience? So be specific with it. Go ahead and when you click on the client page here, I can go ahead and schedule that callback for the tax pro. So does the tax pro own this? Yes, but we're working as a team. So this could be the CSP adding a note. This could be the ATL or even the MTL adding the notes in here. And I can schedule the appointment and set it for the callback, which in this situation is done. So once I put in the tax pro action for this one was once she's made this callback, what it needs to happen next. Record those in the WIP notes. Don't just say, yeah, I did it. Tell me what the next action is. So we're having a conversation. This is a little bit of changing the mindset on this. In the past, it was just a repository where we would put information, make it your dialogue tool with the tax pro to be quick and efficient on our notes. So back in the dashboard, the glitch I was finding, if you put the tax pro notes, but then you also put that you reviewed it at the same time, for some reason, it will take the marked review and it doesn't show a tax pro icon showing up. And what I mean by that is that if I have assigned an action for a tax pro, it will have a number beside it. And I won't have a viewer, I won't have a leadership review anymore. So you want to be able to show that you're making progress back and forth. Who owns the next action? I should be able to say quickly, right now, this is all in tax pro to do some follow-up with me. Does that make sense? Because we've gone from the pending one as being, where do we find our money? So we want to go to anything that is marked as pending payments, and then drop down into incomplete returns. And this year they've helped us out a little bit. They pulled back our unstarted drop-offs. Remember last year, at least in Chesapeake, where we sent out mass invitations for digital drop-offs and that cluttered up a work center. They liked the practice, but they also gave us a tool to manage it by a little bit better. So we can start, as soon as they open the digital drop-off, be sending out the request that way too. And then lastly, the one that we're going to spend the most time in with our tax pros, because this is the living, breathing, what's happening. Well, you can see here what's my main trend. I have a lot of missing information. I have some dates. They're all past due now. So that's why it's all in the tax pros' hands, is that they owe me an action back. What have you done since you put in your last update? Questions on that part so far? I know I've flipped screens really quickly here. Everybody's familiar with the way it used to look, but it's learning this new tool. Where do we find it now? I love how they've been able to filter us, given us some more information on the side. So if we just wanted to really quickly find, hey, we need to drive some products really quick, what's out there that we need to be able to finish up? And those are your two main you're going to be in with there. But we've talked about already how our SOPs go hand in hand. Every time somebody's calling the office, every time somebody's sitting at a tax pro desk, every time you're sitting there doing your paperwork, we should have Work Center open, because we can do everything through Work Center. We should be starting returns through Work Center and training our folks to action it that way. We should set appointments through Work Center, because it will pull the known data from, like if I was pulling up my information, it's going to pull up my appointment information, so I don't have to retype those fields. So if I was to set an appointment for me, it would automatically be pulling those. I forgot I didn't have Appointment Manager open. Key things though is that when I'm on the phone with somebody and they're calling, I can also be talking to them. If they're saying, well, I'm getting ready to schedule a tax appointment, I can see if they have any gaps. So maybe that's an opportunity for a second look. I can say, oh, I saw that you were a client with us back in 2016 to present day. Is there any other of those years if I was missing any that I could look at? There's things that you can do very quickly once you tool. I mean, Leslie Sproul is on the phone call, and I hate to call her out here, but she is awesome about being able to toggle between screens and be able to see multiple information. But it's beautiful that Workcenter has it all in one place for us to be able to do that. So that's my call out about when we're using these tools to be able to stay in Workcenter as our main launching platform as we're moving back and forth for our actions. And the big 6 that we had from last year that's on the document he put out there too, is there appointment setting? So we should be able to go right back to our dashboard and scroll down and make sure that, do we have appointments out there? When's the next follow-up? Did the whole notes talk about that? Who has the next action and when is it supposed to be done by? Who is supposed to be updating these notes, making sure everybody in the office has a clear understanding. If you touch it and open it, put in there what you did last so we don't look silly when we call a client and they're like, oh, somebody from your office just called me yesterday. And then also looking at the fee and balance due, making sure that we don't have anything that's left behind out there also. Phew. Tyler, did I go over my whole 5-10 minute?
Yeah, no, I thought that's a fantastic job. And I think you're right on, right? And if we go over those things, if we make sure we know who's contacting the client, if we make sure the appointments are being set, if you follow that checklist to send in the chat, you go max bonus. I'm just saying, I feel like we did a pretty good job with it last year, and props to everyone on this call, and it really made a huge difference. We had the best, we were number 3 in the company as far as improvement in WIP, and I really think it's because this team put the time in around Workcenter and put a focus there. So great job, Teresa. Thank you so much for sharing. Really recommend everyone really takes a look at that spreadsheet
They added out there our business so we can check business invoices this year. Cha-ching.
Really recommend everyone checks that WIP document I put in the chat and that I emailed out, and you really spend the time with your ATL so they understand fully. If you're an ATL, really recommend you understand everything on that sheet that I shared for sure. So question for everybody then, as an MTL or an ATL or a TL, how do you set the tone early with your team around Workcenter, right? Because if this is going to be one of the more labor intensive parts of your job, is going through this all the time and looking at where everyone is and just constantly following up on these people. How do you set the tone early?
Set the expectation straight up front.
So how do you do that? How do you set the expectation?
So you start with straight to paid.
Yes.
We want you to go straight to paid. If you're not going to paid, please put excellent notes, because as Barb says, ATLs and CSPs don't know taxes. And if they're talking to the client, they need to be able to speak to the client intelligently. Make sure there's follow-up dates. So you follow up. If they're following up, you're following up, and they know that you're going to follow up with them. And I tell my tax pros, if you don't want me to talk to your clients, put good notes in there. Because if their tax return is in there too long, I'm going to talk to your clients.
Absolutely.
Love it. All right, great.
We're going to talk to your clients anyway,
Yes.
because they're going to call when you're not there.
Yep.
It happens.
Great point.
And what's different this year that can help drive that kind of one team focus with the tax pros? What are we doing differently than we did last year as far as pay for them?
The district makes the goal, or none of us make the goal.
Exactly. Their IPP is based off of the goal for the office in the district. So they get paid the most on their IPP. I will tell you, I was talking to Kyle Trissarolis and Erica Algarin around that pilot program, and the number one factor of if they got paid more or less than last year was if the district hit their overall goal. So two videos that you really should watch. I've sent them out multiple times. I'll also put them in the recap email that I send out to everybody. They're both 20 minutes, so we're not going to watch them here. One of them goes through the fulfillment center and everything that includes, and the other goes through the changes in work center. These are great videos you can watch and share with your tax pros, share with your ATLs, share with your teams. I'll put them in the recap email that I send out, but I really recommend to watch both of those videos and make sure your people understand both of those elements. It'll make your job a lot easier this year.
The fulfillment center was very, very informative.
Yeah, they're seriously great videos. They're with the people who've created the programs of the changes that are coming this year. I really recommend it to check it out. Before we jump into schedule readiness, let's just take a 5-minute break. Let everybody stretch their legs. We'll be back. Once come back at 10:23. And just take a minute, and then we'll come back, and Gabby's going to walk us through schedule readiness and some online stuff you may not know, and then we'll keep pushing on. Thanks, everybody. How was your Thanksgiving, Steve? I don't know if he's talking or not.
He's on mute. He's talking.
Yeah, I was muted. My mouth was muted, was moving, but nothing was coming out. That's
All
how my
good.
wife likes it.
Did, did you have the family over?
You know, we went to my wife's cousin's house,
Oh, nice. Very
and
nice.
that was great because all we had to do was eat.
That's the way
They
to do
cooked
it.
and cleaned, and we didn't do anything.
This is
We
where that's something that
brought a
you do.
cake, so that was good.
Very
And
nice.
then we watched the Macy's parade on this huge. I think that's a 70-inch TV in their house.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and it was like an HD, so it was popping out, and it was something different. It was nice though.
That's cool. That's
I
cool.
wish I had money. If only
Right
I
there
could
with
talk if only I could talk my DGM to give me a raise.
Hey, look, I work at H&R Block too. I get it, man. Knowing you, I know you probably want to go watch Star Wars on the 70-inch, right?
Oh yes, that would be a day.
There you go.
That would be my day on May the 4th.
There you go, man.
Marilyn, thank you for having your cat entertain us. It was climbing around on the boxes when you were gone.
Sorry about that. She's new. She's a new addition to the family.
Very
It was
cool.
fun watching her jump around.
Mama, love me, love me, love me.
The floor isn't good enough for that one. Thank heavens I can mute because she talks too.
All right. We will jump back in because the time is now. Oh, I didn't mean to take the screen because it's actually Gabby. So Gabby's going to walk us through some schedule readiness stuff, what she looks at on the daily. The sheet that I sent out to everybody has some stuff has the process to work through appointment manager that Gabby's about to go through. And then she's also going to share how our online system works versus in office, which was a real eye opener for me last year. And I think will be an eye opener for some of you as well. So with all that said, handing it over to Gabby. Yep, you're on mute, Gabby.
Living my best life. Is everybody seeing appointment manager?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. And before you jump in real quick, this is the biggest control you have on actually being able to help your clients, right? So partner with me if you need to change office hours. Partner with me if you want to open later, close earlier, whatever, right? It's the biggest expense you can control. And I want to give you some power here. If you don't see all of the offices when you log into Appointment Manager, let me know and I can make it so you can see all of the offices as a leader as well. With that, I'll stop talking now and get back to Gabby.
All right, so like Tyler said, this is where you control your destiny. First thing I do every morning is I have my comfy corner and I sit and I deep dive into Appointment Manager. So if you're looking here, you can see your current wait list, if you have any clients on wait list, any scheduling alerts, any appointment alerts, and your time capacity alerts. And each of these I'll go over in detail. So we'll start with your scheduling alerts. If you look here, we have Woodford Square has 4, Premier Boulevard has 2. If you look at the company rules for Appointment Manager, it says that if you're open, you should have the office open a half an hour before your schedule. I will let you know that Kansas City will book appointments in that half an hour slot. And so I don't schedule an opener, but my tax pros know to be there the half an hour early. If you have tax pros who need to see it on paper, then schedule that half an hour early. So I go back to the dashboard, and then here are some appointment alerts. So you want to look at your conflicts 6 days out, and you want to make sure your appointments are confirmed. So we'll start with the conflicts because those are where we miss clients, and you want to make sure that you're capturing every client, you're serving every client to the best of our ability. So you see here on the 3rd, it's unassigned work schedule. So if you click on the little calendar, it takes you to that appointment. So we have a client who wants to be seen at 5 o'clock. And I know Steve is available and Christine is available. So I'm going to just put that client on Steve. And then we'll go in and adjust his schedule if he agrees to come in at 5, stay till 5 o'clock to take care of that one client, or to come back to take care of that client. So first I reach out to the client to see if they can come in when we're open. If they can't come in at an open time, I then reach out to Tax Pros to see if we can have someone come in to cover that appointment. And then your capacity alerts. There is one down here. So today at Godwin, there is a capacity alert. What that says is we don't have enough people to cover a walk-in. So Cheryl scheduled by herself today. What appointment manager is recommending is, if these are actual tax appointments, to have another tax pro in. I haven't confirmed these, so I'm not sure. They might be Emerald Advance appointments. In that case, you can shrink the appointment.
Really quick, just a thought exercise here. How much does the average tax pro make per hour? Anybody know?
$15.
15. Nice. Yeah. So if we schedule this a tax pro for this whole time that Cheryl O'Connor is working, how much would it cost us?
15 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, it's 30, 60, $75.
Okay, so it cost us $75 to put a second person here. How much do we make off our average tax return?
$350 or $250.
So does it make sense to schedule an extra person there and take a gamble in case someone walks in and maybe they can make calls in the background and try to make an appointment?
Most definitely.
Just saying. Add yellow space. You can't. Can I tell a story really quick? So, not trying to steal the stage, but I just want to make sure everybody gets this. So, a lot of you have heard my KFC story before. I got it from Dan. It used to be a Carice story. So, a lot of you have probably heard this. So, bear with me if you already have. But KFC, I think it was KFC, had this whole thing where they were like, man, we are throwing away tons of chicken every day. They're like, they did the math. And they're throwing away like over $1 million in chicken every day at KFC at the end of the day because they make too much, right? So they're like, let's do this new thing where we give out bonuses and recognize people who don't throw out a ton of chicken and see if we can make a difference. They thought the program was a huge success. They're like, oh man, we saved $1 million today in chicken. We're doing fantastic. So they went to the top 3 places that were doing great at not throwing away chicken. And they walked in at 3 o'clock. And you know what they found out? There was no chicken being made because, we stop at 3 o'clock so that way we don't run out of chicken. So that way we don't have extra chicken at night. And then they looked at the sales in those 3 offices or those 3 restaurants, and they were down like 80% because they didn't have enough chicken to give to customers. Don't have a capacity problem with your people. Don't make yourself a KFC issue where you don't have enough people because you're trying to protect productivity. I would rather you overschedule and get one more appointment and drive productivity that way. That way you're not hurting yourself. So don't have a KFC issue. Schedule more yellow space than you need, and just make sure that when they're there that they have something to do and that they can be productive, and you'll make more returns. But back to you, Gabby. I just wanted to jump in with that because I see it sometimes.
All right, not a problem. So you want to review yesterday's appointments. So Woodford Square has, I'm sure that client was seen, so you want to make sure you begin service on all returns. But if any of these clients were not made we're not seeing for any reason. You want to make sure they're grayed out. So if you have an appointment you want to go review yesterday's schedule, to make sure that everybody is grayed out. Either they've been marked not served, they've been marked client walked out. This way they populate on our list, on our report, so we can go back and call those clients to make new appointments for them. So if you have any clients who didn't show, no-showed, or called or walked out, you want to have that information so we can go back and contact that client. So looking at our appointment versus the internet. I have it here. So today, Victory Crossing has schedules available from 12 o'clock to 5:30 that clients can make online. And you always want to have enough yellow space so that they can make those appointments online. Where are we? So back to Appointment Manager, you want to go today to Victory Crossing. And they have enough yellow space to take a walk-in appointment or for a client to book an appointment online. One of the problems we've had in the past, and Tyler sent out this note with our with the meeting invite today, is that if you have clients booking outside of the hour, all these spaces are now no longer available to book online. So you want to make sure that you're not booking 15-minute appointments, that if you're moving appointments, you're booking that client on the hour. You want to shrink appointments to be within that hour, or pull them down to be the whole 2 hours if you need to be. But if you have appointments that are not on the hour, clients cannot book online, because if you're booked for a portion of an hour, you're booked for that entire hour online.
Can you go back to that online page that you had a minute ago where you can make appointments?
Mm-hmm.
And it's so accurate, right? So look, you can make an appointment at 12, 12:31, 1:32. You can't make an appointment at 1:15. So if your person makes an appointment at 1:15, that gets rid of the 1 and the 1:30 slot. So even if it's a 10-minute appointment, you knock out a whole hour worth of appointments, and it can really kill your yellow space during tax season for sure. Back to you, Gabby. Nope, you're on mute.
So as you're looking out in your scheduling, you want to make sure that your tax pros are visible online. So if you're going to fill for yellow space, you want to always start with your higher rated tax pros, your 5s, your 6, your 3 through 6s, because those are the ones that are visible online automatically. If they are not a level 3 or if they're a level 1, 2, or 2, they're not visible online. So if you have appointments that have already been booked, you want to put those on those tax pros as long as they can handle it. And if you want to free up your online space, you want to have your 3, 4s, 5s, and 6s available for online. So if you're having your next open day, and your next open day looks like this, you want to look out for the week and see if you can pull any of those returns back to where you need them, where you need to fill space. And just making sure that you have the tax pros to take care of your clients, and we'll have a good tax season. That's it.
Yep. Well, love it. It's all about making sure we have plenty of capacity, that we're connecting with the customer and confirming those appointments. I snipped and put in the chat exactly the process, right? It's reviewing yesterday's appointment manager, reviewing today, reviewing the next 2 days. The really only thing that we're changing from last year as far as our team, layering in that virtual component. As your ATLs are reaching out to these customers 2 days in advance to confirm appointments, that's when they should be saying, hey, go ahead and upload your W-2 to your MyBlock or your ID or whatever. That way the tax pros can just focus on the tax work and don't have to worry even about that virtual element beforehand, if that makes sense.
And with the virtual element also, new in appointment manager is when you book the appointment, you can automatically send the virtual invite. So if we can, if we're doing that for every appointment we book, then we can streamline that process.
Exactly. Any questions so far or any thoughts around either Work Center or Appointment Manager? I know we're covering a lot pretty quickly, but I just want to open it up. Anything we're missing or any questions around it? Oh, I think try muting and unmuting again. Your audio is really off. Either that or my computer.
Is that better?
I heard, is that better?
Yes.
I was just asking Gabby if she could show the reports in Appointment Manager so we don't lose those opportunities when we grade them out.
Yep. Sorry about that. Manager reports. So you can see today's appointments all in a list. But the report we're speaking of is the canceled appointments. And you want to open that up for a month.
We can't see your screen.
Oh, sorry. Share it again. Screen. Minimize that one. Close you. So back to dashboard. So you go to reports. There's your list of appointments for today. You change your reports there. You go to your canceled appointments or no shows or walked out. These three. And there. No shows. Let's go back.
Which are a great way. So these three reports are a great way to build that funnel. When we talk about planning, when you're looking at how can I get more returns? I need more returns, right? Working these three lists and having your ATLs and CSPs call them or you call them and trying to make those appointments. Great way to get more returns for sure. If you're not doing that right now around EA, highly recommend it. The other thing I would say too, can you share your screen one more time, Gabby? I just want to show one more thing, sorry.
Yep.
Something that I look at when you're planning and you're trying to see if you have enough in the pipeline. So there's two hit reports. And then where it says today's appointment hit drop, hit capacity management. So this report I look at almost every day for my offices, and I recommend you guys do the same, right? So what you can see is how many appointments are scheduled for the day. So when you're seeing how, and if you guys need to zoom in, by the way, on Teams, by the way, if you hit the control button and scroll your mouse up, it'll zoom in, it'll make it bigger on your screen, by the way. I see a couple people squinting. It'll show you how many appointments you have scheduled each day. So if you're trying to fill the pipeline, that'll give you a realistic view of how many more appointments you need each day. And it'll also show you the appointment saturation rate. So Gabby, can we pick one of the peak days from last tax season on the top? Like just peak tax season. Not to put you on the spot or anything. Great. So awesome. So we had good coverage during last peak, because what you can see here is the appointment saturation rate is how much of your tax pro's time is completely taken. So when you're looking at making a big schedule, you want this to be below like 50% so you can have walk-ins. I will tell you there were offices that I went in that were short-staffed last year by office that were like 158% to capacity, meaning that there was no way they could help all their walk-in customers. And this capacity management report is a great indicator of if you have enough tax pros scheduled. If you're above 70% on here, you really need to add some yellow space. So something to look at and take into consideration, especially in peak. But I really try to look at it every week and see if that's something you can really look at and see if you need to add more yellow space somewhere, if there's an opportunity. So hopefully that's helpful as well. All right, thank you, Gabby.
Tyler, I keep hearing you say that you look at this daily and you look at that daily. How do you remember to look at all this stuff daily? Do you have like a checklist or something?
Yep, let me show you. So if you forget everything else, this right here is really what, can you see my screen? I don't know if my screen is sharing. This is the scorecard. This is what matters, right? Real talk, at the end of the day, I'm a number and it's an average between these things. What I know so if you, it's how you drive returns, service quality, virtual attach rate, small biz. I try to, if you pulling it daily is a little aggressive because you could have a slow day and then the next day you pick it up, right? So I try to pull it a couple times a week and I will send it out, these numbers out a couple times a week. The other thing I look at is that capacity report. If you just look at these 1, 2, 3, 4, these 5 things and the capacity report, that's really all you need, in my opinion, to really drive the results. And then if you're missing somewhere, right, say returns are way down, that's when you can use the returns, the reports to drill in and find where it is. Maybe an office has horrible phone quality or something, and that's the root cause. But these are the main numbers that you want to push. Does that make sense?
You talked about that at the beginning. Do that first thing in the morning.
It's all good. If you look at this in the capacity report, you're good. And if you look at, I believe, yep, capacity yellow space, just when you're looking at capacity yellow space as far as schedule readiness, it's really that capacity report that you want to look at.
Okay. Why my face red?
No, it's a great question, and it's a good thing to say, right? Because it can be very overwhelming with all the reports that are out there.
Okay.
Bear with me.
So Tyler,
yeah.
so speaking of red,
how
are we going to handle it when we start getting these red reports, that we either have too many or too few people, and we feel like we need to have the extra CSP there, but the report is saying we only need one, and
so here's
we're getting all these red blocks.
So partner with your DGM if you're not in Chesapeake, right? Because what I'm going to say may get you in trouble if you're not under me. But as far as Chesapeake, overschedule like crazy. I'm never going to yell at you for having too many people. The only time that I'm going to have you cut people is when we're in this productivity push and in preseason, when the tax pros bonus off productivity, as far as like a district payout. During the tax season, I would rather you be overscheduled for the entirety of January till tax season ends. And I don't care if you're red on that way. If you're red for being short, that's where I'm going to challenge you a little bit, and we'll try to have conversations to get more people in and open up their availability and stuff. But really, that's kind of the work we're doing now in the hiring front to try to get everybody in and having open availability. What I would say is the best thing you can do now is try to get your people to put their availability in and challenge them around it a little bit to get the most availability that you can. But the only time you'll hear from me is when you don't have enough people scheduled. Does that make sense?
It does, and I'm glad that's recorded.
Yeah, I am all for. I will text it to everybody if it makes you feel better. Overschedule like crazy. I've had the conversation with my boss around it and had him. We went through that exercise together that I just did with everyone earlier with doing the math, and it's like, look, man, just trust me and I can make it happen. And then look what happened with our returns. Chesapeake was the #1 district in the company with overtime, the amount of overtime that we had. We were also number 6 as far as return growth, and it's because we had the overtime and we drove more profit than we lost. So to me, the math is simple.
I've been told it's easier to send people home than to get them to come in when they're not scheduled.
Bingo. Love it. So schedule readiness as an ATL. I'd love to hear from some of the ATLs. I know they've been kind of quiet on the call. As an ATL, what did you look at last year for schedule readiness? Anything that you did? I promise it's a safe space.
This is Janet. Could you repeat that question?
Yeah, so anything that you did last year around schedule readiness? Just on the day, as far as what you looked at as an ATL or what you did to help with schedule readiness as an ATL? Did we look at schedule readiness last year as ATLs?
Yes,
Or-
yes.
We did
Unfortunately, I don't have anything positive to say, and I don't want to say anything negative.
Okay.
basically did what.
If you want to hear
I see.
something negative, I'd be happy to offer something, but I don't want to say anything negative.
Got it.
Okay.
I
Basically,
see
did
Soraya
what
put
we've been talking about, looking at all of the categories and working on schedule readiness. However, what you're talking about is hiring CS. First of all, I work in an office that doesn't have CSPs. I'm it, CSP and ATL. But in terms of bringing in tax pros, that was always a tricky situation in that most of the time it was very severely no overtime.
Yep.
And they could only work X amount of hours, and the ATL could only work X amount of hours, and that was it.
Yeah, so my recommendation is that ATLs can work overtime as long as it's productive. And if you don't have, you weren't in Chesapeake, were you?
No.
Okay. Yeah, I would really recommend. So my advice to you for this tax season is really work hard to get some CSPs in there, because you can hire them all year and they can. And I know you probably, this is preaching to the choir and exactly what you're thinking. Get them in there so you can manage them and have them do the job, and you can kind of get out of the weeds a little bit. And in my opinion, CSPs, ATLs, give them all the overtime they need if they're being productive, especially during peak and everything. It just makes sense to me. So,
Yeah.
and then as far as tax pros, so what can we do to convince tax pros to come in to make capacity? I would love to hear from anyone, MTLs included, what kind of conversations we can have with tax pros to get them in the door, because I know that's a hard one.
So I've had the conversation where if you're not there, you can't get the return. Some of the tax pros are trying to lower their hours to protect their bonus, but if you're not there, you can't have that return to make bonus. So come to work, please.
Yeah, use the KFC analogy, right? It's that you're cutting your own foot off to try to run the race. Like, you got to come in and help the people to get the productivity. I will tell you, I will compare us to another district here, and I'm not going to name the district. It's not any of the districts on this call, right? But preseason, there were two trains of thoughts here. One was, and it was all about productivity. One of the other districts said, okay, and they cut a ton of productivity, and they cut it down to almost nobody in the office to drive productivity. And then our district opened up some extra offices and scheduled like crazy, right? We ended up with a much higher productivity than that other district because they shut off the water valve of returns, and they had less returns coming through that they could close. You know, for productivity, you only need a couple returns for a lot of hours. So trust me, you can't cut your way to productivity. You have to add. That would be my note there. And I think our tax pros do get confused about that. And if we can help them see that light and understand that, it's easier to get them to come in, especially if they've been around for a while. What else?
Joy
What else?
Joy added into chat about adding work from anywhere and also the fulfillment center, how that's going to change the ball game a little bit this year. I think she's right on the money.
Oh yeah, exactly. But you know, they can log in from home and do a return at 2 a.m. Exactly. So
Well, the Will the chat be included in the recording? I don't have chat. I'm on a Mac, which I don't have a chat, so I'm not seeing any of the chats. Will that be included in the recording?
Yeah, it's built into your Teams. So next time you're in an office, if you go into Teams, it'll be under recent notes.
Okay.
So I'll actually show you because I've got. If you go into Teams on a computer in the office, or you can even download it onto your phone, you'll see when you click on chat, this stuff at the top is pinned, so you won't see that. So you'll see right here, here's the call that we're in, and you'll see all the chat, and it won't disappear. And then when I end the recording will actually be in the same chat as well as any files that we uploaded during the call too.
Great, thank you.
No problem.
And Soraya also had a good call out too about looking as when you're busy, because if you're looking out 2 to 4 days in advance to try to impact that change then.
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
if I know that Thursday and Friday are going to be extremely busy, can I either adjust my labor or can I adjust where my clients offer them alternative times?
Love it. And think about the new the bonus for overall district, right? That's going to be an aggressive goal that we're going after, and I'm going to be sending it out, and you can leverage that to be like, look, if you want to get this $1,000 bonus that's sitting on the side right now, if we don't hit the goals of the district, you can kind of use that to help motivate people to come into. So as an MTL, how are you going to look at schedule readiness different than last year? No wrong, or let me rephrase question, right? How should it look ideally as an MTL looking at schedule readiness?
Yellow space, yellow space, yellow space. Make sure we have the capacity for clients to book the appointment, whether on the phone, through online, wherever. As long as we have that yellow space, make sure we're having that yellow space and we're protecting that yellow space.
Yep, exactly. And it's just a question, if you only have one person that can work 4 hours and you have an 8-hour shift to fill, would you rather fill the morning shift or the evening shift?
It depends on the office, but most offices it's the evening.
Okay. All right, we looked at capacity management. Any final thoughts before we move on from what we should be doing as an MTL? Work smart, not hard here, right? Look at the reports, figure out where the root cause issues are. We have work from anywhere. I mean, there's so many tools we can use. It's crazy. So we already talked about CSP coverage. I highly recommend, no matter what you're budgeted, that you have an open and closed CSP at all times. And you can hire all throughout the year for that CSP. And we already talked about KFC. Add, don't cut. So knowing how important schedule readiness is to your office, how do you plan to lead and monitor it this year? Anybody want to share what they're going to do this year around schedule readiness? What are you thinking, Joy, around schedule readiness? I know last year you were pretty on top of it and had some good results around it.
Sorry, I was muted.
Okay.
So I mean, basically same thing as last year. I'm gonna utilize, since everybody's turned on for WFA, I'm gonna utilize that. Moving around appointments to WFA and then using the fulfillment center as well. But then again, just like what I put in the chat, building those relationships with your people tends to give me more availability from them. And it allows me to be able to add more yellow space like Abby was talking about.
Absolutely love it. And I think you really hit on something with that relationship piece, right? And that's what we talked about during our Radical Candor thing. It's really all about the relationship you build with your people. If your people are bought into you as a leader and know you have their best interest and you're coaching from a meaningful place, they'll come in for you. But if you come in and you're like Nazi style, super aggressive around everything and micromanaging, it's going to be really hard to get people to work for you and come back for sure. Any final thoughts around appointment manager scheduling before we jump on? All right. Service quality. So this is by far the most important thing in my opinion. We talked about this earlier. Half of your customers that you help this year won't be back the year after. And the number one reason is because we lack follow-up or they feel like they didn't get value out of the service. So my thing is we really need to make sure this is our number one. It's going to be my number one. It's going to be the number one thing I talk about all year. It's the number one thing I track all year. Last year we missed service quality. We had like an 89.9. We missed by like something like 5 or 10 surveys. I don't know if you guys remember, we were so close. Would love to actually hit it this year. It would be a huge one for us. So same questions, right? As an ATL, what does it look like around service quality? What do you look for? What do you coach?
Last year, I liked the idea of the tax pro or whoever as they're going out the door saying, "Did we give you excellent service?" That, I mean, people actually responded to that. Truthfully, at Hanbury, we said, well, fill out the survey and make sure you tell us that we gave you excellent service. If they say we gave them excellent service. And then that's where you can address problems so that they will give you a better score on the survey. Of course, you should have done a better job in the first place, but at the ending of it, they at least go out with the feeling that we want to make them happy.
Absolutely love that. And what was your service quality last year? Do you remember?
I don't know. It was pretty good, I think.
Yeah, you were, I think you were in the top 2 offices in the district. I think it was like 93, 94%. Do you remember what it was, Gabby? Because I know it was one of yours.
It was 94%.
Okay, so 94%, right? 400 basis points over the company average, top in the district. They got an award for SOP execution like every week. So I really implore everyone to listen to what Gabby said, to what Barb said, right? They asked every customer, was your customer service excellent today? They talked about it with the customer and then asked them to fill out the survey. And they had explosive growth all year from it. I'm sure this year that office is going to have a ton of return customers. It's going to be a big win for them. What's it look like for so just any other thoughts from ATLs or around what ATLs should be doing with SOP, with customer service?
I know I'm not an ATL, but I'm close to it.
Yep.
I know for me, what I do is I listen to my people on what they're saying, how they're saying it. And if I feel that I need to step in, I do. And, you know, I say, excuse me, pardon me, or, you know, can I say something real quick? And I you know, step in, say something, and I step out, give my people, you know, give them their time. But I always listen and see what, you know, make sure that they're on track and saying what they're supposed to and saying it with a smile. But that's just what I do. Make sure that they're on, you know, they're on top of things.
I absolutely love that. That's what it's all about, right? It's that listening, coaching, developing our people. And it's not being afraid to stand in and show by example what it should look like. We can't say customer service is our number one thing if it's not the thing we talk about most, right? So we should really be observing and coaching and watching and building our tax pros up and making sure they understand why it's the focus, how to get the surveys, everything about it. So, and I want the MTLs to model that as well. And you'll see me in the offices modeling it and listening to it as well. And think about these recorded calls. We can listen to them and see, are we giving the same kind of customer service on the phone calls, right? At the end of the day, I think of BlackBerry when they went out of, or not BlackBerry. It was one of the Nokia, I think. When they went out of business, the CEO was crying and talking about how he had to fire everybody. And he said, look, we didn't do anything wrong. We just didn't we didn't adapt and change fast enough and do the right thing. And the next day when I think it was Apple who acquired them, whoever acquired them was talking, and they said that, yeah, they just didn't focus on the customer, and they were talking about the software and everything, and about making it customer friendly and focused for the customer. I think a lot of time, like I'm thinking of this virtual piece, right? If it's not right for the customer, don't push it on them. We want to offer it, we want to suggest and sell it, sure, but if it's the wrong thing for a customer, don't shove it down their throat. Let them make the decision. So when we're going into this year, really focus on the customer, doing the right thing for the customer, making sure they have a good experience and that they come back next year. Because that's really what's gonna drive growth. If you get more than half of your customers to come back this year that are returning customers, then you're gonna have a fantastic growth year, and all of the other metrics will follow for sure. The tax pros that have a higher CES or customer satisfaction score have significantly higher attach rates. They have significantly higher revenue rates. It just all flows together because they trust you as the tax pro. They know you have the best interest in mind. And then when you make recommendations for things, they say yes. What about for an MTL? Ideally, what would it be for an MTL looking at CES?
So it's us reviewing the reports and trickling down to the ATLs, where they need to be listening more to to the clients and the tax pros, and not being afraid to, if we're in that office and we hear a tax return going sideways, or you hear you see the client's body language, or you hear their tone of voice, not being afraid to step in and saving that client at the desk.
Exactly.
Support your tax pros, but save the client as well.
Yep. And think about as the MTL or TL, you think about the detractor calls, the welcome emails, right? That's part of that daily execution stuff. There's a lot of little daily stuff. I'm not going over super in depth. It's all in that Word document that I sent out, that I'll send out again after this call. It's that daily looking at where everything is, making sure we're taking action, making sure that we're coaching, right? What I'll say is last year we had a tax pro in our district, and I should have addressed this sooner. They got a ton of detractor surveys. I mean, you would have thought this tax pro was slapping our customer in the face. And if you let that go and you just reply to the email and keep moving on, and you don't sit down with that tax pro and hit the reset button and explain the why and reset that expectation, it's going to continue to drag you down all year. It's just fixing that root cause behavior up front, right? So really need to make sure that we get ahead of it for sure.
One more thing with Medallia and those detractor calls. A lot of the clients, even if you reach out to them and give them that personal touch with the detractor calls, they feel like you've given them the world. So they go from a unhappy client to a happy client, just having that personal reach out from a manager.
It just validates your feelings.
Yep, exactly. And I would say there's a couple types of customers, right? We have most of the customers want to continue to come to us, and them just feeling heard, they'll continue to come back. Some of them just want to complain. There was actually a study, and I can't remember who it was or what it was. It was from years ago, training I took years ago, but it was talking about how if you just listen to the customer and you show empathy and try to help show them that you're trying to solve the problem, they're more likely to come back than if you give it to them for free. It's the hearing and the listening and actively replying around things that they care about that really drives the service. So something to think about for sure. So blanket question out there, why is service quality our #1 focus? What do you guys think? Why is it the #1?
Because of the
It's
50%
about how we make
statistic you
people
talked
feel.
about.
They could go to any tax service for the same type of tax preparation, but what did they feel that we left them with and their level of service? That's what grows our business.
Yep. It's what grows us. It's what keeps us relevant. If we don't adjust and listen to what our customer is telling us and do the things that the customer wants first, then we become irrelevant and we end up closing shop, right? So it's what keeps us alive. Think about virtual. The customer is telling us that they want virtual tools, not us. So when a tax pro tells you that a customer doesn't want virtual, I would challenge you to see if that's actually true. Because almost all of I can't tell you how many times a tax pro's told me that their customer didn't want a virtual, that they don't have an email, they don't have a computer, they can't do virtual. And then I look that customer up on Facebook and say, is this your customer? And then they end up getting virtual. Can't tell you how many times it's happened. So really just think about the virtual piece around that. Think about how you're going to drive service quality. I mean, it's the biggest piece of the puzzle, in my opinion. And then Barb already said it earlier, but what's our technique in Chesapeake around service quality?
Number one.
Was your service excellent today?
Absolutely.
Yep. Hey, was your customer service excellent today? Because if it's not, we can fix it right there. Why wasn't it? What was the matter? You know, and some people won't tell you if you don't ask. Someone shaves half of my head during a haircut, I tell you, I will get up and walk out and just never go back. I'm not going to fight the barber, right? There's no point. So ask them, was your service excellent? If it's not, fix the issue. If it was, thank you for letting us know it was excellent. Please take this survey and let us know. It means a lot to us. Something similar to that. And if you consistently do that all year, I promise you, you'll have great customer service by the end of the year.
And one more thing, Tyler.
Yep.
The tax pros care about this. They like seeing that score and they like having that good score. So it is something that they care about, that you can easily coach.
Yeah, absolutely love it. I'll tell you what, too, as a leader, it's the hardest thing to argue with. Think about virtual, for example. We're pushing virtual and we need to more than quadruple what we did last year. That's a hard push, right? And you're going to get pushback from it because it's a hard thing to do. Well, it's really hard to say that, to argue with the customer. So if you're saying, hey, look, the customers have told us this is what they want, it's hard for a tax pro to be like, no, I don't want to do it then, because it's really for the customer and keeps them in mind. So if you can relate whatever you're trying to push back to that customer, if you can't, you probably shouldn't be doing it. And if you can, then that's a good way to help show your people the light there. And that's what you're trying to do. But great comment, Marianne. It's the number one thing I hear from tax pros. What do you like about working here? My customers hear it all the time. Virtual tools. So this is the big one, right? Added to our bonuses this year. It's definitely going to be a big piece of what we're talking about. I get an email every morning where we are with virtual and how it's a big focus. My boss talks about it on every single call I'm on them with. It is a huge focus for the company this year. I think we've already talked through it with everybody, how we're moving to the block money program over the next couple of years. We're going to have online banking and small business loans and all of that tied into the offices that are all going to go through this virtual tool. And it's the number one focus of the CEO. It's a big focus. It's not going anywhere. So let's break it down. ATL. What's the ATL do around virtual on the daily basis? Or what should they be doing in an ideal world?
Coaching.
Exactly. So what does that look like, Barb? How do they coach? What should they be saying and doing?
Well, first, in coaching the CSP to offer virtual every time, asking if the client has a MyBlock, and then having them upload their documents to it. And then if by chance we didn't get that done on the phone call, then we try to get them to do it as they come in the door. That doesn't work. The tax pros ask them to upload a document. The only problem I have with it is for those clients who say, I can't deal with that. And we need to somehow note that the client doesn't want to deal with it, can't deal with it, and then that way we're not bugging them every time, and then they get mad at us because we're bugging them when they said they can't deal with it or don't want to. But yeah, coach the CSP on the phone, in the door, and the tax pros.
Exactly. So
Well,
something
Tyler,
I would challenge.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, you're fine.
I know last year I was a CSP, and often we would offer the client to drop off their paperwork a day or two ahead of time so we could scan it in for them and get them started.
Love that. Absolutely love that.
So take that a step further. with this, instead of having us having to scan the documents in, if they're dropping their documents off ahead of time, teach them how to upload their documents through MyBlock. And then that way, that's one less document set we have to scan at the front desk.
Last year I was a CSP, and what I would try to do if we had an appointment, a client waiting for their tax pro, the tax pro hadn't finished up yet with their previous client, I would go sit next to them and have them open up MyBlock or download MyBlock and let them go ahead and scan their documents or upload their documents at that point, so that by the time they got to the tax pro already had those documents in front of them, and just focus it as it's going to save you time. You know, it'll take less time to get your tax return prepared. And even now with EA, I'm having them upload their pay stubs, and I'll show them on my computer how fast we get them. So I say, so when you get your W-2, exactly what I showed you to do with your pay stub, you do with your W-2, and we'll have it by the time you even come into the office for your tax appointment.
Absolutely love it. So something I hope the trend you guys are seeing as we're going through what it looks like for an ATL and an MTL is a lot of observing and coaching, right? We're people managers. That's what we do. We coach, we motivate, we inspire, and we get results, right? So I would challenge you to spend a lot of your day watching TV. And what I mean by that is sitting down or standing by and watching your people and what they're doing, and then coaching and watching and coaching and watching and coaching. And what you do is you slowly change their behavior, right? And you help them see the WIFMs, what's in it for them, help them see what's in it for them, help them see what's in it for the customer, help them see why we do the things we do, because everything we do for a reason, to help the customer, to help drive profit for the company, and both at the same time. And if there's a concern about why we're doing something, reach out to me and I'll help you see the light or help you understand for sure. But definitely, you know, that's what this is all about. It's about coaching and making sure that they're doing the behaviors, and that you're leading those behaviors. Okay, so what about an MTL? What does an MTL do around virtual?
So you're going to start with figuring out what the gaps are for virtual. So talk to each of your tax pros. What are you missing? What don't you understand? And train them on the things they don't understand. So like sending a virtual invite or a digital drop-off invite, walk them through each of those steps. Make sure they know what they're doing so they feel comfortable pushing the products.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm with Gabby on that. And one of the things that I'm going to make a special point of when I do my little one-on-ones with my tax pros is asking them what the word virtual means to them and find out what their holdbacks are. Sometimes it's that word overwhelms them. I don't know why, but you know, it just means so many different things. And if we can find out what their fear is, then that will help us to go that step in overcoming it.
Yeah, I love it. Finding that root cause, right? So ATL a lot is about mentoring, coaching, and making sure that the tax pros get where they need to be. And I know that MTL does that a lot as well. But I want the MTLs to see here is the MTL really, a lot of it starts with that planning, that looking at where you are each morning and figuring out, okay, what's my opportunity out of that list of things that we're looking at? Is it virtual? Okay, if the opportunity is virtual, let's drill down and look at the tax pro, the offices. All right, this office this week. So that means, is it the ATL problem or is it one tax pro? What tax pros can I talk to and what ATLs can I talk to drive the behaviors to fix the virtual or the return growth or wherever that opportunity is? So really looking at it at that macro level of where all of your results are, and then drilling down to find out where that root cause issue is and really helping coach and develop people around that, I think is where you'll see your big win for sure.
Tyler,
Yep.
am I correct in thinking that a simple upload of a W-2 is enough to increase our virtual
Correct. That you're beating me to it. So our strategy around virtual, that's what we want to do, right? Our CSPs, we already said we want a ton of CSP coverage. So the easy win here is to have those CSPs call due days ahead of time and have them upload a W-2 to their MyBlock account. Or when they come in, maybe you have two CSPs in there, and one of them sits there and helps people upload their W-2s to a MyBlock account, right? That'll all count as virtual, and then we'll be winning. But what was on your mind? Was it something similar? That's what I'm thinking.
Just a plug to say, is that the simplest thing we could do?
Yeah, that, and I think the other thing you can think about is a lot of our tax pros are comfortable with AOL at this point. So a lot of when I talk to tax pros, a lot of them are very comfortable getting finalizing a return as AOL, and that'll count as virtual as well. And so either the upload or that AOL are great ones for us. Something else to think about that bleeds into all of this: the customer service, the virtual, the uploads, the outpost offices. Right? We have 2 offices that are going to be completely drop off in virtual. We're going to have a big leg up on virtual. We'll probably hit that percentage pretty easy, I would think, I would hope. Right? And you got to think of all the Emerald Advanced stuff that we scanned in and tried to do virtual that as soon as they pay, become a virtual return as well. So there's a lot of things there that can help us win in this space. But we also have to think around how customer service envelops that as well, with making sure that we follow up with those customers, because even though we'll have a big jump on virtual, we also need to make sure we have a jump in customer service and help that customer navigate that difficult office for sure. Any thoughts on how to enforce? I don't know if enforce is a good word. Any ideas on how you're going to look at virtual in your offices and help make sure your CSPs are driving virtual? Any thoughts from anybody? I don't have an answer here. I'm just curious to see if anyone has anything.
It's like Gabby was saying earlier, is that if you expect it, then you're going to have to follow up and show. Similar, like we set a goal during Emerald Advance that we're going to make sure that we offer and get the MyBlocks and start uploading a document, even if it's just a picture of something, just to show how easy it is. And there was resistance on the first day or two. Why do I have to track this? I'm not feeling comfortable with it. We partnered. We had some of the new ATLs were there helping to manage it at the front desk. But then when I went back around with the sheets every day and was going and marking the improvement, I saw there was more buy-in. So it was also the fact that they know that it was something that was important to me and that I was going to look at it and I was going to follow up.
Exactly. Yep, completely agree.
As far as pushing the, encouraging or driving the employees to use this, I'm thinking again with the fulfillment center and the minimum requirements needed for a tax pro to be able to pull down applications from the fulfillment center. And one of them is that last year they had to have 15% virtual too on their all the returns. So they may not have made that mark last year, but they can push to hit that mark this year, so that tax season 23, they'll qualify to be one of the tax pros to pull down and fulfillment.
It's even better than that. So it's if I have a 14% virtual today and I finish a return and get to 15%, tomorrow I'm turned on for it. So it's hey, you want to get more fulfillment customers next week or tomorrow? Get it today. If you have someone that's at 15% and they help a customer and don't get a virtual and it drops below, they're turned off the next day. So it's a day by day, and it'll really help you leverage and push virtual for sure. The other thing too, I know a lot of tax pros, so TPR, the virtual returns in Work Center, they're starting to pick those by, they look at their base level and they look at their virtual percentage. Those with the virtual percentage get turned on for first. So they want to, if they're a virtual tax pro and they want to be a virtual tax pro next year, they should get at least 40%, or they might not have a chance they'll get it at all. Because I know some tax pros live off of that virtual.
Joy had said in the chat to stay positive, and we need to feed the right energy towards virtual. as managers, we need to embrace it and love it and think it's the best thing since sliced bread, or the tax pros aren't going to buy into it.
100%. Yep. And this, that hits on so much, right? If you think about everything we're doing here, really that whole scorecard we were looking at the beginning, like you should have a strategy for each of those. Well, I'm trying to give you a strategy for each of those things, but you really want to make sure that you're positive around it and giving that message of we've got this and helping support them and show them the path of how to get there. And that positivity, or how you come to it being positive or negative, really goes a long way. I will tell you with this Outpost pilot program, just as an example, for those of you on the call that don't know what it is, they're offices that don't have any tax pros in office. They're just doing it remotely because it's a pilot. There are some district managers who went to their team and said, hey, you no longer have an office. This is how it is. It had a lot of people quit. And then there are some that said, hey, congratulations, you get to work from home this year. Let me show you how it works and how you can get a bigger bonus than ever, right? Two very different messages, two very different results. I'm already assuming will come from different types of districts. So think about all of your messaging and everything you say, because everything you do is watched by your people and judged by your people. The way that you approach things will definitely have an impact on the results that you get, for sure.
Some of the things we're sharing here as benefits for virtual for the tax pros, we should share with the tax pros. And that will help them possibly feel more comfortable or have more desire to do it.
100%. Lastly, we already talked through the other points, so I just went past them. Your commitment's demonstrated by actions, not words, which is the company, that was one of the company slides, not mine. Really, my thought is I want you to focus on relationships this year. I want you to focus on role clarity and relationships. Make sure you have the right people in place, then make sure you put the processes in place and that you have follow-up. If you do that, you're going to win. If you have the wrong person in place, that's what you got to fix first. Once you have all the right people, then you need to make sure you have the processes in place. Do they have the path of how to be successful? Do they know what they need to do to be there? A lot of times when you have disgruntled employees, it's because they don't know how to achieve what you're asking them to achieve. So if anything's not clear, if there's anything I'm asking you to do that you don't know how you're going to hit that number, please partner with me. I'm here to help. I want to make sure we're all on the same page. With that, before we wrap up and go to the last two slides, anybody have any questions about SOPs, anything that I didn't share on SOPs that you guys do as a best practice, or any thoughts in general? I would just love to open it up and hear if anyone's thoughts are. Even if it's Tyler, you're crazy about whatever, let me know. Safe space.
I just want to say in these last two slides that you know, I heard us saying a long time ago, I forget who said it first, but they always said your walk talks are louder than your talks. Meaning, you know, what you do speaks louder than what you say. So MTLs, TLs, ATLs, whatever we do, our people are going to see what we do, and they're going to do that. They're going to follow that before they follow what we say to do. And we just, you know, we have to talk to the customers nice before our people talk to our clients nice. We have to show the kind spirit in the office before our people do it. So we have to show it to our people and then to the client before, you know, it happens. Just wanted to throw that out there.
No, absolutely agree. Thank you, Steve. Any other thoughts? Any other questions? Anything else on anyone's mind before we close it? All right, so I'm going to send the big thing I want you to get out of this, right, is planning is key and relationships is key. I'm going to send out these two documents, the the daily cadence that breaks down what you should be looking at every day. This is really for the MTL and ATL, right? For the MTL, look at all of your offices, see the big picture and drill down all the way down to the tax pro level to see where you need to spend the time in the coaching. For the ATL, really make sure your whole office is aligned and knows what they need to do. I'll also send out the WHIP strategy, which breaks down how to work through Work Center from the beginning to the end to see how to best help the customer and get to paid, because it's a really great document. So I'll send you those two things. Highly recommend you use them. Other than that, I asked that Chesapeake's team stays on for just a minute because I want to go through something unrelated to skills that'll be quick. Everyone else, if you have any questions, need anything, feel free to reach out to me or email me or text me. Thank you guys so much for joining. I really appreciate everybody's time, and I'll see everybody at 9 a.m. tomorrow.
Thank you. This was an excellent presentation.
Oh, go ahead.
I have a really quick question.
Sure.
I'm Tanisha. I'm new at this, and I don't know nothing about where to go clock in at. So I was wondering, did I miss something?
Not a problem. Who's your MTL? Do you know?
It was Fran, but I think she's out on leave right now.
She is out on leave. Do we have someone from Fran's
And then it
district?
says you. And then it says Susan and Jordan. I seen something about a Susan and Jordan sent me some emails.
You can clock in on Chronos.
On who?
So I'll tell you. Oh,
Chronos
someone just
under
put in the
DNA.
chat. Can you call Deborah at the number she put in the chat there, and she'll help walk you through it.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks, Deborah.
All right.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Tyler,
Have a
are
great
you
day.
are you standing in for Fran while she's out?
Yeah, I'm here for Fran until she's back with any issues. And you guys, we'll have a call tomorrow, 9 again as well. Today, tomorrow, and the next day we have 9 to 2. They're not going to be till 2, like we're done with 11 by 11:30 today. But I'm here if you need any questions, need anything fixed. I just got access to you guys' Chronos and Appointment Manager and Work Center and everything. So feel free to email me, text me if you need anything. I'm here for you guys.
Thank you.
For sure.
All right, thank you. Have a good day.
All right, thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thank you. And then for Chesapeake, I'm not going to take our too much time. I just wanted to make sure we're getting ahead of something really quick. So I made this last night. So can you see my screen?
Yep.
So I made this last night. It has every single office that we have in the district down here on the bottom. And every customer that we helped last year for the entire season. This was about around the mass texting we were going to do. So we're going to send some mass text out to all of our customers by office around the tax season. We'll send one at the beginning of the tax season saying, hey, we'd love to have you as a customer. Please upload a document by clicking this link. If you want to make an appointment, click here, that kind of thing. And then we'll do it for first and second peak as well to pull those customers during that time forward so that we have more capacity during peak to help our customers. So my thought was right now what we can do is I know a lot of offices have CSPs and ATLs who need something to do as now that we're slowing down. I'm fine if you give your CSPs 40 hours a week and have them help pull these phone numbers from Work Center and try to fill these out. Wanted to open it up and see what you guys thought about it. If this is a good strategy or plan to try to drive some revenue growth, what do you guys think? What's on your mind?
I love it, and we have a plan today to get it started.
Perfect. So I'll email. Go ahead.
I was going to say I'll have a plan before the end of the day to get it started. So yes, it's a great idea.
Perfect. So I will email it out to everybody right after we hang up this call so you have it. My thought is, as I know some offices have more than others, so maybe on Tuesday's call, we'll talk about it again to see where they are and then reallocate CSPs and ATLs where they need to be to help continue to knock out the ones that aren't. That way we're not double working the same entries. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, are you going to send it out as a shared document so that way we can access it?
I'll upload it on Teams and I'll email it as well.
When
So
does the first text go out?
When we're not going to send any mass text out until January 15th-ish. So we've got plenty of time. And don't send any mass text, please, anybody, until I approve it, because I want to make it really specific, because the risk we run here is that if a customer hits the stop button, they won't get any more communication from us. So we don't want to blow them up here. We really only want to send like 3. It's going to be, hey, welcome to tax season. We love you as a customer, or whatever. Here's a discount, whatever we can get to keep them back so we retain as many as possible. Here's a link to upload your W-2 as soon as you get it. Here's a link to make an appointment as soon as you're available. They're already filling up. Lastly, here's a link to the IRS so that you can see how much child tax care credit and stimulus you got. Please have that information before you return, because if we do all of that, it's going to save us so much time and effort before we get into the tax season. It'd be ridiculous, right? And then we'll have a huge jump as far as virtual and everything. It'll be just a big win. Then when we get close to first peak, like 2 weeks out, I'll send an email to all those customers that come last minute and say, hey, love to give you 20% off if you book an appointment for in the next 3 days for one of these weeks beforehand. And then what that'll do is lend it to where when we're in peak, we actually have more people that can walk in, and then we'll do the same thing for second peak. That's what I'm thinking. What do you guys, I mean, is that a good, any thoughts on that?
All right, here.
So
Are we also going to finish up the Boneyard mass text?
Yep. Oh, so that's the other mass tech stuff we're doing is around holds. So my thought is Boneyards, I'll let you guys manage it, however we want to text with it, go for it. The first of every month, I want to do a mass text to everyone in our holds saying, hey, you still haven't paid for your return. Don't want you to have to pay extra fees. When can I make an appointment for you? Keep it that open-ended. That way they reply, we make an appointment, or we start a conversation or whatever and make an appointment. I think it'd be a big win for us. But that'll be separate.
Okay, I'll follow up with Gabby and we'll do something with it today.
Awesome. So we've got 2 more of these skills calls. That was really the heavy one. The other 2 are around some other stuff that I think I'm not gonna really micromanage to the level they want me to, because I don't want you guys to feel overwhelmed. And the reason I put you in the roles as leaders is because I trust you as a leader, and that's really where I want you to be, right? So I'm not gonna micromanage you, but they're tools that are there to help you. Any feedback on this call format? Anything I can do better before we finish? Totally safe space.
All was well. I really got good information out of it.
Awesome. Well, if anyone thinks of anything, or you feel free to text me and let me know. If you're not comfortable giving me, Marianne, are you still on?
Yes.
Can you also be a feedback person for me? What I mean by that is if you don't feel comfortable giving me feedback directly, but you have something that you're thinking, feel free to text Marianne and she'll tell me anonymously, not who it's from. Because I really want feedback, and that's how I grow. Okay. So, all right. I appreciate all you guys' help. I'm going to send this email out to our team. And then a couple minutes later, I'll send out the recording and the links and everything else we went over. And other than that, I'll see you guys at 9 a.m. I've got calls until about 7 p.m. tonight. If you need anything, call me, text me. I'm here for you. Talk to you guys later. Bye.
Tyler, one question.
Yep. Sure.
Even with the hrblock.com, but their hours that we're open, can we still schedule people to come in and work?
Yeah, if the hours don't match, shoot me an email. They should match, or you can just shoot Dawn an email and say I need them to match, and she can change WebCDB. They should.
I made
So
a match.
what he's saying is the hours match, Tyler, but he wants to schedule people to come in outside of hours, which is fine, I guess.
Yeah, totally fine. Totally fine.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, schedule people like crazy. Productivity, I won't be tracking this whole season. My whole thing is overschedule like crazy, but drive returns like crazy. What I'm going to look at as far as labor is I'm going to look at people who have low productivity, meaning they're working a ton of hours but not getting anything done. But if you're using them to get returns through someone else, that's fine. I just want to make sure we're doing something, right? Overschedule like crazy, but make sure everyone has a list of stuff to work on, if that makes sense.
Okay, that's awesome. I do. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Did you have your hand up?
I did.
Okay.
How have you talked to Fran? How's she doing?
Fran is doing well. she, in typical Fran fashion, keeps trying to work, and she's very focused on helping the district and doing well. I told her to really just take some time to be with her family and her husband. I will tell you, from the funeral, I didn't get to go to the funeral, but I spoke to her after and spoke to some other people that were there, that she's got a lot of support right now. Her whole family's around her and helping her and being with her. And she's in a good place, which is good. And so I'm trying to take anything that anyone needs help with, so that to protect her, to keep her having time for herself with her and her family, and she's in a good spot. We sent her, I didn't know what corporate was going to do, so from our district we went ahead and bought her some flowers and some cards and stuff and sent them to her house as well.
Okay, that's good.
Yep. Anybody else? Anything else?